Today we're going to discover why mastering tarot requires more than memorizing meanings and symbols in cards. But if you're memorizing meanings and symbols of cards, you're actually doing more than most tarot readers do. Hello everyone, I am Solomon Pakal. I am a generational brujo of Kachi Maya descent. I'm a historian and I am an occult researcher. I've got over 2 decades going on in the practice. And today's topic is spicy. Today's video title is spicy. But in a nutshell, I'm going to encompass it in this. Tarot isn't for beginners. It is not. Tarot cards are not for beginners. In a nutshell. Let's go into why. So tarot is a system. It is a very in-depth system. Like all systems, if you're going to get involved in it, you should respect it. Otherwise, it's like, why are you getting involved in it? The intention, I mean, you might say that someone was like, yeah, I got involved in it because I have all this like affinity for it. But really, if they're not taking the time to go through the procedure, go through trial and error, and go through even the, I want to say kind of the gatekeeping process depending on the tradition. Tradition, it's not just tarot. Then are you really about it? Are you really about it? Or are you what that thing, like how you can empower and legitimize your name if you were associated with such practice? I say this because people do this all the time with Santeria. The thing is that, so a little background here with Santeria. I'll give you a good, I grew up in the Afro-Latino folk magic scene in Washington, D.C. And the backbone of it, right? My family's from Guatemala, but the backbone of that scene was Santeria. It was Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Cuban deity worship, the Orishas, right? And that interlinks with Lukumi and Ifa and all this stuff, right? But what you would have are like people that would buy the aleques, or they would buy the beads and stuff at shops, and they would have no intention on receiving initiation, on receiving ocha. Full disclosure though, I never received ocha. However, I received mano de arula, I received aleques, and I received los guerreros, the warriors. So I did more than what most people do, but I was just called to a different path. And like I've had this discourse with I still talk to my old padrino and my old madrina, and we talk about this. I was just called to a different path. That's why I never received ocha. But so I'm not an authority on Santeria, but I will tell you right now that like I have enough experience to tell you more than the average bear about Santeria, and we can relate this Santeria thing to tarot. But you would have people that wanted to speak up and say that, like, oh, I am a Santeria authority, despite they would never, like, fully disclosure this until you deduced it on your own with the conversation, that they actually weren't initiated into Santeria. But they would try to speak for the Orishas, minus the initiation. This becomes problematic because in the system of Santeria, you can't actually divinate the word of the Orishas unless you know the Delugun. And to do that, you have to have initiation and know that. But there would be people that were actually trying to say that they could divinate what the Orishas were saying with oracle and tarot cards and stuff like that. That's not how it works in the system. That's dishonoring the culture. That's dishonoring the culture from which it comes from. Dishonoring the system from which it comes from. So, you would have these people that try to speak on the art without actually being embedded in the system of the art. They had some kind of fascination with the art, but it wasn't being embedded. And putting in reps for the arts, even when the reps were not fun. This is the problem we have. It's a similar problem that we have with tarot. Many people, there's this common thing that goes around these days, and I'm not the only person that feels like this. There are a lot of high-level occultists that when they hear the word intuitive tarot reader, they cringe. And they cringe for good reason. Because all divination systems at some point need intuition. To claim intuition over everything is ridiculous. Tarot has a method, and if you're not familiar and well versed in the method, then you're just not fit to be a tarot reader, which you might be. If you want to be intuitive and completely intuitive to a T, try Oracle. The problem, and I've brought this up in other videos, Oracle allows you to get intuitive immediately, unless the Oracle constructor, whoever made the Oracle deck, like specifically grafted out with certain patterns and numbers and elemental kind of things, like verbatim, like almost to a doctrine, right? But most tarot cards are not that dogmatic. Most Oracle cards are not that dogmatic, and you can jump right in and you can start using your intuition. I totally encourage this. And that's why, like, Oracle gets a bad rep, but it's very useful when getting in a lot of reps and getting in a lot of reps with your intuition, expanding your intuition. You could probably progress a lot faster with Oracle than you can with Tarot, just because of that. Just like you can expand your intuition to high practical levels based upon that. Because the thing is with Tarot, when you engage with it, you really do need to know the system. And that, while intuition comes later with that, you need to honor the system. You need to learn those correspondences, and that can take logical time, and that can take more time than developing your intuition. But listen, here's the thing. All divination systems use intuition to certain degrees, no matter what. So to say you're an intuitive tarot reader, that's like, in actuality, in literal terms, that's like, so it's like saying, just because I have a combat sports background, I'll bring this up. Saying I'm an intuitive tarot reader is like saying I'm a fighter that punches. It's like, well, duh. Like, every fighter punches. Every diviner uses intuition in some way, shape, or form. That's what it would literally mean. But I'll tell you what it actually means, what intuitive tarot reader means. And I'm not saying this out of my own experience. I'm saying this out of so many respected occultist perspectives. So many like a tarot reader perspectives. I'm talking about like personal friends I've had that are essentially authority figures on this matter. Intuitive tarot reader typically equals someone who hasn't studied it, but wants to get paid for readings and gets feelings off of the pictures that are depicted in the cards. That's typically what is insinuated, or like at least beneath the surface, when someone says they are an intuitive tarot reader. Because intuition is not enough to discern the complex systems, plural, that are embedded in tarot. Now, I'm not going to go into like the complex, large history of tarot, but if we just list off some of the systems that are embedded in tarot, because it's not just 78 cards is a lot. 78, that's a high number. Like when you're talking about like tools I have to memorize in order to use, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I was in the military for a long time. If you have anything more than 4 tools, you're kind of overburdened technically, and it's typically regarded as not an efficient system. Even in combat sports, anything more than 3 is getting highly complex to the point of like you might not be able to use it in stressful situations. So 78? Jesus Christ, that's a lot of tools. It's a lot of things to learn about. So 78 cards on its own is a highly embedded system. But that's not all that's involved. There is Kabbalah that is embedded in Western Tarot. Kabbalah for, I guess, certain more orthodox authorities, right? Kabbalah. Numerology is embedded in Tarot. Western Astrology is embedded in Tarot. Various Western or Western adopted mythologies are embedded in Tarot. Even later, kind of like Jungian archetypes are kind of incorporated into Tarot. And I would argue soundly. They are soundly adapted into Tarot. But this also speaks to why not all Tarot decks are good fits for tarot. I'll give you an example. Sometimes there are just too many different cultural differences. There's just such vast cultural differences between like the person trying to make an artistic rendition of tarot based off of a different culture to the actual tarot itself, because it is Western based. Here's an example. The Santa Muerte Oracle, I'm a big fan of. I actually really like the Santa Muerte Oracle, very much so. It is, it's really a great artistic depiction in experience, a collage. It's a collage of indigenous mestizo culture of Mexico and Central America, for that matter. That it incorporates so much symbology and so many different mythologies, but Oracle allows for that. Oracle has the flexibility for that. The Santa Muerte Tarot is bound by the 78 card rule and other correspondences from Western Tarot, and I actually despise. I do not like the Santa Muerte Tarot. It is, there are some conflicts, like if you practice enough with it, there are some conflicts that you will find with correspondences if you pay attention. And this is because there are some things that they're trying to put, like, there are some things from indigenous cosmology that they're trying to, like, really fit, like, square pegs into circles, circle holes, or circle holes into square pegs, or something like that, right? They're trying to fit that in a, into that 78 card, like, Western constriction when it doesn't fit there. And I have found that the Santa Muerte Tarot does not typically lend to good readings, in my opinion. The Santa Muerte Oracle, though, I highly recommend. It's, I think that's a good example for like the dichotomy of systems and like when you're trying to bound things into them. And I'm not saying that you have to have a traditional tarot deck at all times. In fact, the contrary, I'm not really a fan of Rider-Waite. I'm not, I don't really mess around with Marseille. But I'll mention some of my favorite tarot decks. And some of them are not even like the most traditional. For example, the True Black Tarot, I think, has 79 cards. And it's not the most perfect, like it doesn't strive to be by the book at all times, but it still fits that cosmology and that model. And True Black Tarot is very effective for readings. Another tarot deck that I will shout out that I absolutely love. For me, this is the standard. That's the Kabbalistic Tarot, because on each card they have the gematria correspondence, astrological correspondences, like just everything on it, on each card. I absolutely love the Kabbalistic Tarot, but it's still coming from this like Western interpretation of cosmology. So it is a system, it's working towards one direction. It's taking all these various directions and working towards one. Like it's going to the same place, and it lends for better results. So these themes, they need to be honored. And they need to be honored also just for efficacious reasons, just for like good results. Just for good results. So I'm going to give you a tip here. I'm going to give you kind of like a ritual procedure to like properly work with the tarot. But let me just say, like, if someone says that they are an intuitive tarot reader, that's typically is a thumbs up that they have not actually studied the tarot. Now, but what are they doing? So what are they doing? There's not necessarily no method to their madness. I'll go ahead and give them this much credit. Typically, an intuitive tarot reader is trying to look at the cards and then piece together some kind of story based upon the illustrations. So does this work? It can work. But the thing is that you could also do this even better with oracle cards, because oracle cards kind of allow for that fluency to do that. You are to interpret a story within tarot cards, but it's still supposed to be within the paradigm of tarot. And if you don't know the correspondences, then do something else. Tarot is not simply an interpretation of illustrations. It is an art between interpretation and knowledge of correspondences. And if there are intuitive tarot readers that feel differently, then I guess you're not... if you're an intuitive tarot reader and you feel differently and you have studied the tarot, then I guess you're not an intuitive tarot reader because you've actually studied the tarot. And everybody uses intuition. Everybody uses intuition with divination to some degree. So the word intuitive is redundant at best, and it is deceptive at worst. Because intuitive tarot reader, the hidden agenda is typically to, in a way, slyly confess that they have not studied the tarot and they've developed their clairvoyance to some super high level and they can interpret the tarot despite the system. No honoring of the correspondences there. So if you want to actually do the tarot, what do I suggest you do? So if you listen to some of my other videos, I recommend certain divination methods for beginners, right? I would do those first, and then I would do like there's kind of like a standard tarot initiation ritual where you there's different interpretations for it, but there's some similarities that are basically the same. And I've been able to compare this method with a few different magicians, and they've basically agreed that like we all have like something that's worthwhile there, and that even if we have additional or less components to it, this basic thing is the same. It's an initiation into tarot. What you're going to do is you're going to take a tarot deck that you want to bond with. And again, as I said, not all tarot decks are created the same. Some of them correspond better to those Western themes than others. But you can do, but like aside from that, I would it's hard out. It's a case by case basis to discern like how effective will this tarot deck be, right? So just going to kind of cover broadly. You take a tarot deck and you divinate each card every day. Or you divinate one card every day. And with that card that you divinate every day, you stuff it underneath your pillow or in your pillow. Go to sleep with it. And you essentially go on some kind of astral journey with the tarot. And then you do the next card. And then the next card. And I've heard various interpretations for this. Like, do you start with the major arcana? So I've heard various interpretations of like, yes, no, maybe so. I actually encourage you go to, like, if you feel called to a certain part of the tarot, especially if it is not a major arcana and it's a specific suit, start there. Because that's kind of like a wink from the universe that you are deficient in a certain kind of elemental area. And there's a certain part of your soul that wants to reconnect to those elements. So go that route, and then you'll go through that suit. And after you're done that suit, you move on to the next relevant piece. So the major arcana might be the very last thing that you do. You do this, do it one card a day, 78-day ritual. You can even culminate this ritual with like a big kind of like altar setup and whatnot. I do a lot of tarot magic. I love the tarot for all kinds of types of manifestations. It's super powerful. I love it. I love it. I love tarot. I think the system should be really honored. And I will be first to admit that I can't read every tarot deck. I don't have the capacity for it. There are some that I feel more called to than others. And here's a realistic number. A lot of people say that and they think, oh, like, well, he has like a vast array of like what he can do. Typically, like magicians that are really worth their salt are good at a few things. And maybe I have 5 decks that I could go to at any time and just start plugging and playing. Whereas like others, it would take me a little bit of time to warm up to. I have no problem admitting that. Not all tarot readers. People think like this tarot reader, like lady with a crystal ball with a scarf around her head, can just like read any tarot deck. I think a lot of that is pageantry, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that can, but that's an extremely rare talent. But I love tarot. It is it's definitely one of my preferred divination methods because of just such narrative packed into it and such correspondence packed into it. But please respect it as the system that it is. It is a system. It is not simply pictures. It's not simply pictures to be interpreted as or interpreted as a story. All of that being said, if you want to truly engage with tarot cards and tarot as a divination system, please take the time to learn the system. It is a magical path in of itself. You can do magic with tarot, you can do mysticism with tarot, and you can do divination with tarot. Those are the three primary components of magic. You can have an entire esoteric journey just through tarot. I encourage it for people if you are willing to make the commitments to it. It's not a sacrifice, but it is a commitment. And only do it if you're willing to commit. Don't do it if you just want to charge people for readings and if you just want to charge people for readings and you're just going to play Pictionary with the cards in order to charge people with readings.